get out the largest brush that you have, and this is also a bright or a flat brush. So what we want to actually do is go right over to your white cup that you have for your paint, and literally just go in and you can sort of pick up a scoop of it. And once you pick up the scoop, just lay it onto your palette just a minute, because what we want to do is we want to think about what color that we want this water to be. And if you'll look at the paints that you have, this light blue color, if you'll just go in and use the corner of your brush and just get a smidgen of the paint right on the corner, so you just barely tap just enough of it in there. Now take that and mix that up into your white so that you can get a blue, and you can see how immediately that just turns really, blue-ish. Now you can add as much blue as you want, but that way you won't get too much blue too fast. Because what's going to happen in this background is literally we're going to start in this top left-hand corner, and we're literally going to take and we're going to come all the way down. We're just going to go back and forth with our brush like this. And we're going to, don't worry about pre-mixing the paint necessarily. We don't want it to be too mixed, because look, we want it to be really stripy as we go. So every time I go over to my palette or to my cup to pick up paint, I'm just gonna do it so that I carry the paint almost separately. Like I can have the white loaded on one side of the brush, and then if the blue's just on the corner, you can see how easy it is to have all those stripes running through. So that's exactly what we want. Now we're gonna add more white as we continue across the top. And what I want you to think about is you've got a line for your jellyfish, so you can somewhat go around it. But as you see, if you now go and dip your brush in the water just a little bit, and as you get closer to the jellyfish, if you'll just get more water and more white paint and just continue on around. You can see at the top, we got to the top, ran right off the page, so we didn't have to go too far. But now that we're up underneath, we have white, and we have the water that we can just put right on the brush, and we can just go back and forth, back and forth. So as you move across, the first color that we put in there was the cerulean blue, but now we're going to add a little bit of some of the other colors as we still play around this area. We want this to have a little different look in here. So as I come in here, I'm going over to the ultramarine blue, and that's the darker one, and I'm putting just a smidgen on the corner of it, and I'm going to put it right over there in the same palette space that I put the other one. I just laid that color right in the middle of it, added that just a little bit, and now I'm going to pull some of that color in, and I'm going to streak with that just like I did with the first cerulean blue or the lighter blue color. So we get a few patches of the darker one. This almost has a little purple feel to it, because that's what it goes more to the red side of the color wheel. So it picks up some of that red look to it and turns a little on the purple side. We can also pick up a little bit of the sap green. I'm continuing to go and pick up white as I need it, and continuing to lay that in back and forth, back and forth. I'm using the whole width of the brush to make sure that I get a full coverage. And now I'm going over to that sap green, and I'm getting just a smidgen of it on the corner, just a tiny, tiny little bit. And I'm mixing that right into the white and right into the blues that I already have on my brush. And you can see now that I'm just going more white paint, more water, and now a smidgen of the green. Now add brown and white together to make the top of the jellyfish. And once you get that sort of top right hand side done, we're going to add more white right in the middle. We want to make sure that that middle space is lighter. So if you've got too much brown or too much paint on your brush, we want you to add just enough white so that we can make sure that that center belly part, we're gonna make it like a moon shape right up underneath that darker brown. We wanna make sure that that's lighter. So we're doing the same thing. We're following the same stroke like a moon shape, but we're making sure that we make it light or whiter in the center. Crimson color.
Okay.
And put that in. You can see that you've got a space where we want that to show up. It is going to turn pinky, and don't worry about that for now. It just does that because it's lighter. We're gonna layer it a few times so that you can make sure that it has the red look that it needs. But if you'll notice, for the technique of actually laying in the color, I'm being really tuned to making sure that the brush does not stay flat. I don't want a nice flat moon shape like I had on the first gray and then on the white. I'm using the brush in a different way because what I want to do is create that little bit of texture in there with the brush. I'm twisting it so that in some places it's darker and in some places it's lighter because that white paint is wet and it's up underneath it. So I'm just moving it around, almost like dancing with a brush. I'm just twisting it around. And I'm creating that so I can build some layers on top of it because I want it to literally look like you can see through it. And that's gonna be our first layer. And so the white's up underneath it. And this is gonna be sort of layer number one as we start, and then we'll build new ones as we go. We're gonna go around to think about more of the side area over here, and we're gonna add blue. And then once we finish putting our colors in, we'll come back and do another layer. But that's red. So now just you can leave that on your brush and you can pick up the dark blue and just get a smidgen of that on the tip of the brush. And once again, the dark blue is gonna be something that we're gonna lay on first, and just literally take your brush and move it out so that it forms an edge. But you can see that it turns the corner. The brush you can literally use, see how it's beginning to turn purplish? That's what we want at first. We're gonna let those other blues come right through, but I'm just taking the brush, going in and just moving it around so it's not laying down flat. It just comes up in the corner and moves out. And you can use what we call the toe of the brush in that area. Just use the line of it to make the edge like that. You can pull the edge through. You can just twist your wrist around to get that little corner filled in. And you can pick up now more dark blue, so you can come in and literally we're gonna make the edge with the toe of the brush, and then we're gonna fill in. Now, as we begin to move this direction, like up underneath the red, we're literally just gonna put them in like U's or sort of sideways C's. We're just laying them in so that they feel like they're curved, okay? We're making little moon shapes or C's, little curves, so that we can actually see them. We're leaving the colors, we're leaving the texture on there so that we can see it. And we're moving towards the middle. Now, as we move on around, you can see I'm following the line that we can see that represents his body. And we're gonna continue with the blue. We're coming on around, just use the line of it to go around and create the edge. Now, that's gonna be broken up a good bit in a minute with the other blue color, but we wanna get this one up underneath first. So take the darker blue and go around the corner, but don't go on up to the top. Just use the edge and go right around the corner. And then, without even wiping or changing, we're gonna pick up that cerulean blue. That's the one that's lighter. And we're gonna start here, and we're gonna begin making the same kind of shapes we made over here. We're gonna make those here. We're gonna lay in the blues. This is the lighter blue. Once we lay a few of them down with the color that's really right out of the tube, then we can add a little white to it, and we can come back, and I'm gonna overlap just what I did. So that means I'm gonna take and add the white and come back and do it again right on top of where I went the first time. And these are just fun little brush marks that can give him a little bit of density so that we can, see. And some of the others will be very transparent, so we can get the feel of it being open or empty or see-through, transparent in the middle part a little bit more than it is on the edges. Now if you'll go in and put the brush in the water, and then with what's on your brush, it's still keep the blue, keep the blue and everything that's on there, and just dip it in the water. And then I want you to come in, and literally we're gonna use the whole width of the brush, and you're making like, you would do like a rainbow, except it's all with the same color. You're just doing a gesture of that same moon shape that we've been playing with. This thing is round, and so all the marks, if they're done in that round motion like that, will help identify its shape. But that way I used all the colors that were in the brush, and I just dipped it in the water, and that way they look like I can actually see where the red came out and where the blue came out. I can see some of the white, the two different blues. So just leave it very uneven and just streaky. We'll come back, if you'll dip your brush in water one more time, just not adding any more color, but this time come in the very center part. You're going to use that same color, and this time you're just going to use the same brush stroke that we used here with the red, where literally we're just laying down the paint and making it look very textured so that you can see that it's not flat like we did when we were making these strokes. We've got a little bit of different texture, and it's a little more dense instead of being flat and open and airy like those marks are. So it's all in just twisting and moving. We want this color to actually move around because of the way you're holding the brush in the corners. You're moving it around. Over here, you're just laying it down flat and pulling it and stopping. You're not doing any mixing. You're just laying down the color. Now, with the white area that we have in the top, don't worry if it's not wide enough yet. I'm dipping my brush in the water again, and I'm going right up here in the area where we first started with the gray, and I'm adding a little bit of that. See, now I have mostly water on the brush and a little bit of the color, and now I'm just pushing that watercolor right over that gray color, and I'm just letting it lay right on top of it. I have enough water in the brush and only a little bit of color left because I've picked up water 3 times on the brush, and it's getting thinner and thinner. So now I'm able to overlap and lay it right on top of the gray. And if you'll notice, I'm going to come on down into the area where it's red a little bit, and I'm going to do the same thing. And if you've got that red, it's just going to be probably a tad wet, so it's going to mix in just a little bit, but not too much. So now you get that illusion of that white film like that he has on his body. See how I'm going round now, I'm doing a different texture. Remember, have water on the brush, that's important. I'm coming right across, it's white, so it's opaque, and you can see how it's beginning to make that shape really show up, because I'm using that full width, full stroke to come right across, and I'm turning the corner. And when I get to the end, I'm making it like almost like a U shape. And then that way, all of that now has that white feel coming across.
I definitely need more white, not on my cup, but in the thing itself.
Okay, yes.
In the middle, yeah, I don't have a lot of white right in the middle.
Okay, well, we,
Can go back to that one, some
oh,
of this dries,
definitely,
so it
yeah,
doesn't
as soon
blend
as we
in.
get the whites, the B is usually the last thing we do with a highlight. So, yes, we can always add that in. So now with your brush, really it has a little bit of a white sort of colored mixture on it. It's light and there's not much color there. It has mostly water. I want you to go in and pick up just a smidgen of the red that's a little bit lighter. Just a little smidgen of the cad red, just the smallest little amount that you can put in the corner. And what I want us to do now is I want us to put a little bit of that red. I just sort of made some squiggly marks in here, just a little bit. It's a little bit of practice for what we're gonna do out here, but it also pushes the brighter red in, but almost like it's making the inside part of the jellyfish. And that gives us another layer. So originally we put the flat white ghost-like film on the top. Now we picked up a little bit of the red, just a smidgen of it, and we just scoop it around, make it very movement, you know, use the lines to make a real movement in your brush. So it's really wavy, curvy. And it just sits right in that space. Now do the same thing with the dark red, so take the alizarin red and just get a little small tap right on the end of your brush and do the same thing. Just barely touch it and just sort of squiggle some marks in there, just squiggle. And then as soon as you get the basic mark done, then blend it out a little bit so that you can tell it's inside that space. Now add water to the brush just a little bit. Tap it maybe dry with your paper towel, and then go in and blend just right on the top. Touch it as light as you can, very delicately. Just barely touch it and move it out just a little bit so that you can see the color, but it doesn't take over. And once again, it looks like it's inside. It's inside the space. Then we'll work on the white some. So now you can wash the brush.
I think my paint is just so wet that it's not, there's already so much water on it that it's not one to.
Okay, we're gonna move, so if you'll just let everything dry for a minute.
Because when I tried to do that, it just won't do it again.
Okay, I'll use my brush on it. Yeah, we'll let everything dry. Let's see if we can use a little bit lighter touch and just sort of skim over the top, and then we'll have to blend out some, just a little bit more. So it's really irregular. So the little, I think.
So we don't want the squiggles to show so much. This is
Yeah,
just
well,
kinda.
yeah, it's sort of like we know that the squiggles are under there, but the membrane sort of thing takes over and it sort of hides up underneath there. So we see it, but yeah, we see more of the membrane thing on start, you know, as we go, we'll add more and more and more till you get
Okay.
it come on. But right now,
That's the general idea.
That's
Okay.
it. But now we will add a little bit more of the white in, so wash your brush. We'll add many layers till you feel like it looks like the inside is covered with this white membrane kind of substance, but just with a clean brush and pretty much dry, not too much water. Get a little white on your brush. And what you can do to be able to carry enough white for it to look like a highlight the way we want it to, literally if you will put it on your brush and then literally just mix it in like this back and forth on your palette, so that way you're covering both sides of your brush or filling both sides, and then you're not carrying too much paint either. This is a very thin wash paint for an acrylic, so it's fun to do, but it is very thin. So what we want to do here, especially where you were talking about, one thing, the light's coming in and hitting here, so we've got more of the light. So just lay it on like this, and literally you're making, again, that moon shape kind of thing, but come across, just lay it down so you barely touch it. And you can still see all the colors up underneath it, but you can tell it's whiter or lighter in that middle section. So just let the paint barely touch those other colors, and it's sort of everything under it's sort of tacky, so you get like one more layer. So don't worry about that's not the whitest one yet, but it's one more layer, because that's what's important about this picture is layers. Okay, so now wash this brush, and we're going to change brushes. So if you'll wash that one and just agitate it in the water cup back and forth enough that you can get most of the white paint out, and then just put it aside. And we're going to get another brush. This time we're going to get a round brush. So dip this in water. And this time we're going to go with the edge that we want in here. We want it to be dark blue. We're going to take a dark blue and a brown, almost half and half, just enough brown so that you feel like that your blue is turning like a navy blue or a darker blue. See the difference between the first blue I put and the second blue? So it's just a little bit, and you're only using a little bit of paint anyway. So it's really like one brush pickup of blue and one brush of brown, and you mix those on your palette just a little bit, and then using the round brush you just go in and give this edge the feeling of being darker or more dense, so that you can't see through that as good as you can see through all of this other part. Right around the edge we just want to come in, and it's almost like a scallop where you just go in and make the edges round along the bottom. And you don't have to paint like you're painting in the lines necessarily. It's a rough kind of shape. If you think about like putting U's together, just a hit and a miss by the time you get to the top. So you're moving from the bottom, and then you're moving all the way around, but you're just hitting the very edge, and then you're getting to the corner that you stopped on a while ago with the blue. But it's darker, but you still have all the blue that you put in first still showing through. So you're not trying to cover up everything, you're just trying to add another layer. Okay, so that works great. So now we're gonna do the same thing with red just a little bit. So if you'll wash the blue and the brown out, if you'll pick up a little of the dark red, and this time put a dot of brown in it, a very, very small amount of the dark brown right into the dark red. And using just the tip of the brush, if you'll look like this, what we're trying to do is we're trying to go in with the brown brush. We've got brown and red on it, and we're just twisting the brush around right in the palette so that we have a point or a peak. And what we want to do is we want to make a few more marks in here that just barely touch the canvas. So it's like almost a dry brush look where you can see it's darker, but you can still see through everything that's up underneath it. You are barely touching the canvas. Just touch it enough so that you can see a little bit of the pigment come out. Okay, so now we're going to get a little bit heavier, go in with water and pick up just a little bit of water so we can have another layer that looks like it's coming in, but it is a little heavier for us to see. It's a little redder so that we can really see it on top of this corner area. See how I'm using the brush to make the round marks again? I'm using those so everything looks round. But at the top, I'm keeping it light and airy, and at the bottom, I'm getting it a little bit darker so that we can see it a little bit more. And I'm going to do the same thing over here in this corner. I'm getting it darker so we can see it a little bit more, but along the edges and in the middle, really just keeping it sort of light and airy. Now, pick up a little bit of the light red. You don't have to wash or change your brush at all, just pick up some of the light red. And we're going to do the same thing, except this time it's going to be a little bit more of a wash to wash those colors together as if it was one color instead of a dark red and a light red. So I have the light red on my brush and I put the red in the water. And now I'm going to come in and I'm just going to push a little bit of the lighter red into the area, and that'll make yet another layer. So everywhere where you touched the canvas earlier, we're just touching it a little bit more. And we're just washing one color over another. Okay, so that'll work on that side. Now, a little more water on your brush so that you're carrying just a little bit of paint, a lot of water, and a little bit of color. And literally on this side, we're going to make that moon shape come around like this so that we can see the shape, but with the amount of water we have on there, it almost becomes invisible. It's a very little amount of paint. It's more water. If you get too much, all you have to do is take your brush, dip it in the water again, and then pretty much just wash out anything that you feel is too red. You don't need much, but just wash out. If you feel like you have too much, just dip your brush in the water, move it around. But you can see the layer that adds right on top of the gray and right on top of the blue. Remember, we'll come back with white again, but that certainly gives it dimension. We've got another layer of blue to put in, and then we'll just about have it. So that's why I said don't worry about the white, 'cause we got a couple of layers to do before we really finish it up with the white.
Pink.
Yeah,
Too much.
okay,
There we
just
go.
wash it out. It's easy to wipe off, 'cause you got all those layers up underneath. I'm gonna let it dry a minute, and then we'll put blue on it. Okay, so while we're waiting on that, we are gonna come down and get ready for our strings that hang down from it. Now, those we will do in several different ways, but if you'll clean your brush, this round one, and then load it with white paint, we're gonna use white first to help you get started. So once the round brush has white paint all over it and you've twisted it around on your palette, so we've got a point sort of on the end, if you'll come in on that bottom left-hand side, and what we want to do is just have one pass of a mark, a brush stroke that looks like upside down kind of moon that's just hanging around there for a minute. And we want to do the same thing on the top, but this one's going out. So this one will start here and then go out that way. But it's just such a light mark that you barely can see it. And then we want to take one, literally, if we sort of thought about dividing that up into quarters, we want to come in here and we want to do another white. This time it's more curvy. And once you get about halfway down with the curve, it's looking sort of like a number 8, you'll have to probably pick up a little bit more paint and go again, and it gets a little fatter as it moves down to the bottom, but it's just real curvy, snake-like, and just let it fizzle out. It's a little bit thicker as it goes down to the bottom, but it just fizzles out. Doesn't have a specific edge. That's with the white.
Mine's a little more squiggly, but that's okay.
Yep, it sure is.
They're all over the place. It's okay.
All right, so now let's go in. If we do quarters, let's do another one right here, and we'll let this one be a shorter S or a shorter snake-like right in this area. So now we have 4 to 4 that pretty much divide it into quarters. That's just a reference place for us to get a reference for other colors that we need. Now let's go in between the first 2 and make another section, but this time let's let this one, instead of it being a solid mark, let's let it be more of a dot or a pat. So I'm literally taking the brush and I'm just patting the color, and I'm moving down the bottom, and once again it's not really straight, it curves, but it's just a pat, so the texture is different. All right, and now in between the next 2, we're going to do the same kind of thing, except this is going to be more like a dash. It's going to be longer, and it's going to come through and go all the way out the bottom. So it's just a little bit fuller line. You can barely see them, but it's just enough so that we can see that light passage that we want to see. And then we've got one more. Now the next one that we do in between is almost, we're gonna divide it almost like a Y. So we're gonna start in the center and come out, and then we're gonna go back and come out the other way. So now we have like a Y that's divided out, upside down Y.
Hey. What are you doing? I'm painting. What are you doing? Are you home? Okay.
Now,
Okay, keep painting. Just let me go. So that you
Yeah,
get
it's my
some-
turn.
Okay, I'll be home around 9:30. Okay, love you.
so let's add the yellow ochre to the white. And we're gonna go back and repeat what we did, except we're not gonna cover the white. We're gonna make like a darker edge in and among the white. So I'll show you. We just wanna hit like the same. It's almost like we're putting a silhouette or a shadow quarter like up underneath it or among it. So here's my white dash. Right, I'm following it, I'm copycatting, but I'm not covering it. I'm just laying it somewhere close by it. You can even put it right in the center of it. So you can get that little bit of dash of gold that just sits right in there. It's yellow ochre. We're gonna do the same thing to this. We're just picking up a little bit of the yellow and we're just dotting it so we can see some of that color come through. And then we're moving it right over to the next one and we're putting it in again in that area. Just laying it really close. And then we're going to the next one. We've got those long marks that just go right through. So we touch it. Just enough so the white is there, but it's not all white. Go to the next one. We're hitting a few spaces. And then that Y shape, you just barely touch it so it fans out a little. And then we've got the last one. Now, with the yellow ochre, we want to come in and we want to come right up here in between where the white's going to be and where the red is, and we want to put just a little bit of that color in. It's very light and airy, just a very soft, delicate touch so we don't get too much paint on there, but we can see it, but we can still see all that other color through it.
Paint like either I'm playing tennis or ping pong, I still hit it as hard as I can, and I can't seem to not do that with this.
I get it.
It's all or nothing.
That's all right. I get it. I understand. It'll work, though. It'll work. So let's just leave what's on your brush, though, and this time take dark blue and put a little bit of the ultramarine on your brush. And you can go into the same pile where you had the ultramarine and the brown. And if that's dry, just go back right in and put a little bit of brown with the blue. We're not going to go too bright on this at first. So it's dark blue.
I'm having a hard time picking up the brown.
Oh, okay. Here's a scoop.
Perfect, thank you.
So it's blue and brown, but it had some white and yellow that was already on the brush, so that's fine. It's a little gray kind of feel. Now dip in water and let's go in and roll it right into that. Roll it right into the palette so that you can see the color. Just Roll it right in, sort of a grayish blue. And once you get it on there, you can change it as much as you want to once you get the feel of what's gonna happen. Literally, this one's gonna come from that bottom left. You can see as we begin to trail a line, it's very thin on the end, but then it's gonna get thicker. But this line is gonna be where I want you to use your brush, and I actually want you to wiggle it like this with your hand being over the brush, instead of like you're gonna use it to paint, you know, like to write with. You're gonna overhand it like this. And literally, I just want you to let it sort of just fall down as you begin to let it just go.
So you guys just twist?
Yeah, twist. And just let it roll down. And just do it once, and then just leave it there. No matter what it looks like, just let it fall there and be there. And we can always make adjustments, but we don't want it to be overworked too much to begin with. We're gonna do that a couple of times. Go right to the center of the jellyfish, and this time the dark one is not gonna go straight down, it's gonna curve out to the right side a little bit, but you're doing the same thing. You're almost just like laying it right across and just dropping it. So it touches, it hits it, but it's a very curvy, loose line.
It's kind of fun.
It is.
We're gonna do it a couple more times. Add a little bit more of the blue to it, and then put water on it, roll it up, just a little bluer this time. We've got the dark end that we need, so now we're gonna go a little bluer. This one's gonna be shorter, and it's gonna be more like half the size of this one, and it's like sort of like a number 3, where you just sort of lay it down and just wiggling around. You can see it just sort of sculpt it, just let it be wiggly. All right, more water on your brush, roll it in that dark color again, just roll your brush around. This time we're gonna come all the way on that right side top, and we're gonna just let it almost make like a moon shape. Just lay it down and just let it sort of curve around. So if it hits or misses somewhere, that's fine. We just want it to start and head downward. And then we'll do a few more like that in here, where we just let it hit and then stop. So it'll go a couple of inches down. So we'll put that one in the middle. We'll put this one in the center of the white ones that we did earlier, just to set up sort of a reference, a place for we want to sort of equally divide these dark ones out with the light ones just a little bit. Okay, so we'll go through, and this time we're going to hit a little bit more in this area, but it just sort of, it just moves down. We can barely see that one. We don't want them to look too even or too much, you know, repetition, too much the same, but just a little shape that comes through. All right, now let's do it this time, but without the brown added into the blue. So if you'll wash out the brown, and this time we're gonna go to the blue, and we're gonna actually put both blues, the light blue and the dark blue together. So dark blue and light blue, and then the smallest amount of red that you can put in there without making it turn purple. And you'll see what I mean. If you'll put a smidgen in there, you can see how it turns dark, but it's not quite a, you know,
Which
deep.
red?
The darkest one.
Okay.
Yep. The dark red. We're going to use that to do a few things with. And if it's purple, it's okay. Next time you'll just change it and we'll do more blue, because we'll use both of them. So once you get a color that's sort of a dark kind of navy blue, but it's not gray like the first one, it's got more blue in it, we're going to go ahead and make some pretty good shuffles in the center. This is almost in the center, but if you got any lines in there from your outlines while ago, you can see it falls in here, but it's just really curvy compared to anything else we've done. Just real squiggly, but it's more of them. So you can put that in. If you lay your brush down darker and heavier, you can see you can get a little bit more of that. You just don't want to get too heavy too soon. You want to keep it really light and airy. And then you can always make it darker or heavier if you need to. So now let's come on over up towards the middle and the top. We've got, say you were coming in from this middle section, say you divided this in half. We're going to actually do two of them. We're going to make a squiggly one on one side and the other that look pretty much alike at first, or the same sort of size and shape. And then we're going to actually let them sort of come together in the center just a little bit. Just move the lines sort of together, but very broken and uneven, and you know, just they connect. You sort of weave them together just a little bit, but not too much. And then add a little bit more water to your brush. And we want to continue the line through so that it really just sort of comes off the corner of the page with a couple of streamers. But lightweight compared to the one that we put over here that was the heaviest one. Okay, now let's go in and add the green to that just a little bit. I'm taking off most of the blue. I didn't wash it, I just put it over there on the side of my palette just a little bit, and pick up some of the green and then add water to that. So now it's a greenish color that has a little bit of blue. And let's come in over here on this side, on the left.
I definitely have a darker color than you do, by far.
I had white on my palette.
I was like, wow, you have such a lighter green.
Just put it in your white over there that's already in your palette. Just with that, yeah, anywhere over there, just mix a little bit of the white in
There we
there.
go.
Yeah.
Because I keep peeking at your palette, like trying to get the color right. I'm like,
Yeah.
what is happening?
Yeah, I'm just mixing right on top of the white stuff that was
I
already
guess
there.
it doesn't really matter as
It
long as it's
doesn't,
kind of.
as long as you like it, but if it feels too heavy, then it definitely can have the white in it. So add the water to your brush now and just roll it in there. So it's liquid enough so it flows. That's the most important thing. We want all these lines to sort of flow. So pick a few more places, like we'll start over here. We've got this one, but let's go ahead and put a few more of those on that side so that they're just stringy. And then we'll come over here and put one that's stringy. So that'll give us a few green marks. And now wash that, and let's go light blue. So if you wash out the green, and this is the light blue without any dark blue in it. So this is the cerulean. And as you see, as soon as it hit my palette, I had some white paint in there, so it went a little
Kind
light.
of scattered.
Yeah,
Kind of got them separated.
well,
so.
yeah. So if it hits white, that's fine, but add water to your brush and roll it around, and we'll give a few light places. Now let's sort of do a little heavier kind of brush stroke in here. So instead of using just the point of it, I'm just gonna sort of, remember how up here we scrubbed a little bit? I'm just gonna wash it in a little bit more of a scrub so it's a little bit heavier. I just did it like 4 or 5 inches down, so blue, and I just made it a little heavier. Now, same thing, but we're gonna come down here towards the bottom, and we're just gonna pretend like that stopped, and then we're gonna start it back up a little bit again. And just let it run right off the page. Now, while you have the cerulean blue with the white on it, come back up here and hit a few places so that they feel like that's that same color right on top of the other colors that you had. Just a few in that corner.
So that would do that. 'Cause there was a couple places that the red got, and I'm like, I don't like that.
Yeah, so you can cover it up. You sure can. Now,
I'm good with that.
will you go in and take the blue that's on your brush and go into the white and the yellow gold? And if you don't have them wet, then you can just add more, but white and the gold, which is the yellow ochre. So now you have a different color, and it looks like this. So it's cerulean blue with yellow ochre and white mixed together. And we're going to dip it in water, roll it so it's really fun to do a little bit more. And I'm going right down the center and just pulling more lines, curvy, but a little bit fuller. But it flows all the way, but very uneven, but sort of graceful as it moves down. And now let's go to the other side, more water, and this time a little bit more white paint. Make it a little lighter. And let's go in and we did it on this left-hand side, so now let's do it on the right-hand side. And go down and out till it just flows right off the page. So the width of it's changing a little bit. The transparency's changing a little bit. Now add a little more water and a little bit more white, so it's changing one more time. And we're gonna go all the way back over to the left, so this time it'll look a little different, but coming in here, we're literally gonna sweep and go in between and come down and let it just fall out. So now you can see three, but they're spaced out. They're a little bit heavier. Okay, now.
That's kind of blended in with the background.
Okay, that's fine. I think that's okay for now. Now let's take the color that you have, white, on your brush with the blue and yellow ochre. Take that and put a dot of the brown in there with it, just a smidgen of the brown, so it goes on the little gray side a little bit. That's it, it's perfect. Because every time if we change, we get a different look, but this is sort of gray.
It's nice, hard to scoop.
Yeah, bare, yeah, you don't need but just a smidgen.
Alright, let's add more white.
Yep,
All
that'll
else
work.
fails.
That's right. There you go. That's just about perfect. Good. That's
Mine's
good.
definitely darker than both yours.
Well, that's okay. It can't be. All right.
I'll go with darker.
So now we're going to do a few of those lines. We're going to start up here in the corner and use, remember, water, roll it in the brush and come down and just let this one just flow right through. So it's sort of a snaky line. You barely can see it. The whole point of doing the ones like this that we barely can see, but they're in there, that little bit of gray makes such a difference in, you want it to be there, but you want it to almost like be so that you can see through it. So I did one on the top or right side, and now I'm doing one on the left side. But it's got a little brown in it, so it goes to the gray side just a little bit. And then I'm gonna do another one, and this one's gonna be a little more squiggly. See how I'm just gonna play with it? So a little more squiggly. Now, can you take that same color and put the dark blue in it? Put use the color you have and just put a little bit of dark blue right in it, and it'll change it again. There you go. The more you change the colors, the more you're gonna like what happens. Now this time we dip it in water, roll it in that color, and then this time we're literally gonna make more squiggles, almost like a zigzag kind of thing coming through. And then just let it die out as it moves down the bottom. So it's a zigzag. Good color, yep, that's it, good color. Okay, now go in and put that dark green, the sap green, yes, go in and put a little bit of the dark green right into that, so it changes again. Yep, and then roll it in the water, roll it. Each time it's changing, just ever so slightly. Now, right through the center, just drizzle that one through. Just drizzle right through the center and let it just come down to the bottom. Still snaky-like through. Now wash, and we're going more to the pink purpley side. And you know how strong the red is, so just be careful at first if you don't, especially if you're not a pink person, and you don't want it to go pink. So with your brush clean, go in and pick up the dark red, and then go over and roll it out in your brush, and go right over where your pile of color is right here that looks greenish blue. That's it right there. Yep, use that one. Put it in there so it's not too overpowering. There you go. Put it right into there. Add white to yours just a little bit. There you go. Okay.
White.
Almost. One more. There you go. Now, we want that, if you look at your inspiration piece, you can see that most of this pink color that's in here sort of comes down into this area now a little bit. So literally with that color, even though it's got the blue in it, see how pink it still looks when you put it on your brush? So put a little bit and do a few little squiggles hanging down, coming right from that center. Do 4 or 5 little squiggles in that color. It's red, but it's got the blue and the green in there with it. Just do a few squiggles till you like the way it looks. And if they're too dark or too pink, just change them accordingly. But in that area, we're gonna focus in on a little bit more of the pinks. Or purples if you've got more blue in it. If you don't want it to go too pink, just you can add the blue right into it. Now once you go through the center and do a few of those, come on down into this area and let one of them just sort of go all the way through the center so you can see it down towards the bottom a little bit. You can do a few little loose lines that just sort of flow through so you can see it every once in a while, but not really consistently. And the same color, I'm picking up a little bit more of the red side though. I'm going to the red just a little bit more. And then I'm gonna do some lines, picking up water, rolling it so the red's a little more defined. And then I'm gonna come down and literally use it as a line, but not thick at all. It's very thin because I don't have much paint on my brush and I have a lot of water, and I rolled it so I can just get a thin little line coming down pretty much all the way through. So do a little over here, do the same thing, a little more water, a little more rolling, maybe even more white if you want it to. And let's go over here to this side and just hit a few places where you can see a hint of it, but it doesn't, you know, take over. Now, with that same color, come in right here and just add a little bit to the top, and you can see what you want that to look like right across that sort of moon shape, just a smidgen if you need to add it across the top. Especially if you had too much of a color a while ago and you want to change it up a little bit, that little bit of blue and gray in it, green in it, really makes a good gray kind of color, purpley kind of color to go right in.
It's kind of a mauve.
Yeah, it does look like that. Yeah, it does. Okay, so let's wash out that color.
I haven't really gotten the blending down very good. I usually have pretty distinct areas.
Okay, so let's go with white on your brush so that you can get enough of the white in there that you feel like that you can get this white enough, because it's dry enough now. It should be real easy for you to come in using that same stroke. You still want to see enough of the stuff up underneath it that it doesn't feel solid. It feels a little on the transparent side, but it's light enough you can tell that it's wider in the center. Okay, so with the white on your brush, go in and get the water. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna add a little bit of a look of it being a little more transparent in here to make it look like the water is actually on top of the jellyfish, because he's in the water, of course, and so water's on one side, but water's also on the front side. So all of these lines that we put in here, we're going to tone down some of them just a little bit. Now, you've got white, but it needs to be basically a white that is a smidgen on the blue side. So you're gonna put the smallest amount of blue that you can get in it. So literally that when you put it on here, it really matches this background space that you have over here. It's just about the same color that you painted the background with.
I have a lot of blue in my background.
Okay, so you can use that if you want. I want you to, when you look at it, what you're gonna actually do, in some of these places like this, you're gonna come in and you're just gonna let the water sort of begin to cover up a few of the lines so that they're not as showy or not as quite as distinct. But with water on your brush, a lot of white and a smidgen of whatever color you choose for your basic watercolor, you're just gonna add it right on top so that you begin to let some of it sort of hide. So you're gonna wash just some of the edging off, or some of the highlight of the color. You can actually even blend some of them together. If a few of them are wet and you happen to touch them, they can actually just blend together just a little bit, so it has a little bit more feel of movement in it. If you actually just come in and just really with that round brush, just go in and sort of follow the look of what's happening with it, just going from, you know, the top down right out of the painting. as the brush moves. Just a wash over it just enough where you feel like that he's in the water. But you can see the water just passing right over him. Add as much white paint, add as much color, add as much lines that just can just barely touch and pass through. So you weave the background into the foreground just by letting the colors lay on top of each other. But you want to see everything that's up underneath. And you do it just till you feel like it works for your painting. They're all different, so they're all gonna look and need different amounts of white. You may even need darker blues in some places. You can certainly just pick up, as long as you're using a whole lot of white and a little bit of color, you can make it go any which way you want. More mauve-y, more greeny, more bluey, any of those will work. And every painting is gonna look different. But that's how you layer that and then get it to look like it's incorporated into that one water space. It's really fun too to come back after you get that water integrated in it, just to take like the white paint that we're using and almost like give it dots. You could give it all kind of little fun textures and things in there, but playing in there with the different colors. I just have white, that same round brush, and I'm just dipping it in every once in a while and putting a few of those through, because I feel like it has enough of everything else. If you want to go a little bit more to the yellow ochre side, see how I'm picking up a little bit more of that and just washing it in. So now you just get to evaluate your own picture, figure out what it needs, and you can finish it from here.